Welcome, everyone. I'm Danielle Gully, and I'm the Executive Director for the Woodstock Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I appreciate all of you coming out tonight for our Meet the Candidates event. I'd like to first thank our Woodstock Chamber Ambassadors Club for being here tonight. I'd like to thank our sponsors of tonight's program, Associated Electrical Contractors, the Woodstock Independent, the Woodstock Chamber of Commerce, and our videographer for the evening, Escape Technologies, Mike Potter. I will introduce now our moderator for the evening, Larry Lough from the Woodstock Independent.
We're sharing a microphone tonight. Good evening, good crowd here. We have very few rules. No cheering, no jeering. I appreciate the fact that you've submitted a lot of questions, and we'll try to get to some of those. We've developed some questions on our own, but you know, when we get questions about potholes and backyard chickens, you just got to get to those at some point. We're going to give the candidates 30 seconds to introduce themselves to you. If they need more time, they have a 2-minute closing at the end, and they can borrow from that. We'll have questions, and generally we will allow 2 minutes for an answer. If I see a question that doesn't need quite that much time, we might limit it to a minute, but I'm running things here now, so I'll make that decision. And we will start with introductions in 30 seconds. So we got the timekeeper. We know where the timekeeper is, everybody? Oh, okay, right there. And Tom Grell will start. Mr. Grell?
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Grell, and I have been a resident of Woodstock for over 40 years. The platform for my campaign is to bring economic growth and development to Woodstock. I would like to see that through manufacturing, added commercial business, and added residential homes to our town. That revenue that is generated from that growth can go directly towards the mentioned fixing the streets that are desperately needed in our area and can possibly offset some of the high property taxes we are currently paying. I want to be a champion to help grow Woodstock and move it forward, and I'm asking for your vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
Ms. Lohmeyer, I'm sorry.
That's good. Hi, I'm Lisa Lohmeyer, also a native Woodstockian, graduate of the high school in 2007, left for college and worked a few years elsewhere, and then I made the conscious decision to come back to Woodstock and invest in the community here, and I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to serve the community that invested so much in me growing up here. I'm looking forward to helping our community grow. I think that can mean a few different things to different people. Specifically, I would like to listen to a different group of constituents and hopefully represent their concerns and attract, you know, that younger generation to come back, those millennials, those empty nesters. I want to thank the Independent and the Chamber and the Opera House and all of you who have come out and taken the initiative to learn a little bit more about each of us, and I hope it's a really great night.
Thank you. Ms. Pearsall.
I'd also like to echo those thanks to the Independent Chamber and to you guys for showing up tonight and caring enough about your community to learn about these issues. My name's Wendy Pearsall. My husband and I moved here 5 years ago from DuPage County. We fell in love with this town. In fact, my friends made fun of me thinking, are you some kind of ambassador for Woodstock? You're posting about it all the time. We just really fell in love with this town. I own a publishing company near the square. My husband owns Lake Marina RV out there at 14 and 47. We've invested a lot of ourselves, our time, and our emotions into this community, and we've actually been a big part of, I think, the revitalization of that intersection there. So one of the things that I bring to the table is the fact that we've been through this economic development process, and we believe in this town. We believe it's worth investing in. So that's going to be a common thread throughout probably all the issues that I talk about tonight. So thank you again.
Mr. Flynn.
Good evening. I want to echo the sentiments of everyone else. Thank you for hosting the event, and thank you guys for coming. I am not a native of Woodstock. My husband and I opened a business 3 years ago on the square. It'll be 3 years in June, and made Woodstock our home in 2017 after being so welcomed by the community and feeling that this was our new home. We fell in love with the square first, with the snowflakes and the bright lights and the Christmas music and Santa's hut and the diversity when it came to the businesses that the square offered. Seeing an independent bookstore that had not only flourished for 10 years at that time, but it doubled in size, and seeing stores like the Backdrop that had longevity, and looking at all of the potential that Woodstock had, and the fact that we felt that this was the place that we could open a business and make it successful. Since then, getting involved and sitting on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and being involved in just about anything that we could get involved in, has really made this our home, and feeling that the platform for me is basically being very forward-thinking and taking Woodstock into future generations, looking at any decision with 5, 10, 15, 20 years in mind.
Thank you.
That's what I'm here.
Mr. Standard.
Well, first, thanks to the Independent and to the Chamber for hosting this evening's event. My name is Michael Stannard. I'm here this evening with my wife, Jolene. Jolene teaches 7th grade math at the McHenry Middle School, and I'm a designer. Together, we renovated the 1950s vintage former Conoco station at the corner of South and Jefferson Street. My marketing, communication, and design group occupies that space. Also, by way of introduction, I designed and produced the Woodstock Mural and Sculpture Garden, along with the support of my staff, Terry Wilcoxon, Tina Hill, John Puzo, Sue Selford, and the assistance of the Public Works Department. Risking conceit, I'd like to think that my creative muscle and marketing savvy developed over 40 years in business will allow me to make a meaningful contribution to the future of Woodstock as the leadership of our community changes dramatically over the next 4 years.
Thank you all. We will rotate so that everybody gets a chance to go first, and everybody gets a chance to go last, and everybody gets stuck in the middle at some point. So question number 1, and Mr. Standard, I'd like you to take it first, please. We'll take it in reverse order of the introductions. By the end of the next fiscal year, Woodstock will have spent, conservatively speaking, $3.5 million to ensure the structural integrity of the old courthouse and sheriff's house, just to prepare it for development. And we still have no plan for what it should be. What is your feeling about the spending? What is your preference for how the building should be used, commercial versus civic? And what role should the city play going forward, as owner or as seller of the buildings? Mr. Standard?
We've had the building for 7 years, and for the longest time, it was considered to be a problem. We were trying to get someone to save us or take it off our hands. I suggest that we should shift the point of view from the building being a problem to one of being an opportunity. My firm has developed a comprehensive plan that will self-fund, financially responsible, long-term use of the building. And I'll talk more about that later if I get the chance. I want to create the Woodstock Visual and Performing Arts Academy, patterned after the Savannah College of Art and Design and many other schools. And there's nothing that will bring more vitality to the square than having that complex alive and thriving and full of life. And the Woodstock Academy is what I propose to do if I'm on the City Council.
Mr. Flynn?
The old courthouse is a jewel. honestly, in the crown of Woodstock. It's also a thorn in the side, but it's a jewel that can be polished. And I feel that the best use for this, this wonderful structure is a kind of a public-private venture where you have public businesses that are working with oversight from the city. I feel that the space should be adaptable and should be used for a multitude of needs. I know that in one of the proposals that was made is that a banquet hall or something. I would like to see something like an incubator. Maybe we have a fashion incubator or a culinary incubator or something that it works and it's fun and it brings people to it. It's a destination. I would love to see if there was some sort of, if we could do a microtel or something, some kind of a hotel that would offer additional lodging on the square here in Woodstock.
Ms. Pearsall.
So I actually sit on the Old Courthouse Commission, and I've been steeped in trying to figure out a use for this building for the last 2 years. And I really get the frustration with how much this building has cost to just keep standing. And at the same time, I could never stand behind the idea of tearing it down to make it into a parking lot. This is the skyline of our city. It's a part of our identity. So we've explored a lot of uses for this space. We've had a lot of really great ideas come in front of our commission: co-working, art gallery, museum. The shortage that we've had is we've had a short of of good and viable ideas, because most of the ideas that have come before us have required some sort of subsidy from the city, and we're really sensitive to the fact that we've already spent a lot on this building. We're trying to find a use that's actually self-sustaining. So the commission, this final plan will start having some tweaking, I'm sure, but the commission is looking very seriously at a banquet and event facility, hoping to focus on weddings in particular. We're going to preserve the art gallery space and also preserve having the public house in there. Nothing's happening to them. In fact, we might be able to find a way to help them expand. And possibly a boutique hotel. This is honestly the only fiscally feasible use that we've been able to identify that also keeps the buildings open to the public, which is also a really, really important criteria for us. We didn't want to close this off and make it into private housing or private offices, because then we lose these buildings. So I'm really pleased with the work we've done as a commission. I know we have a lot more work to do, and once we finalize that idea, there's going to be even more work to get it from that startup idea to the end. If we're going to be, it's basically going to be a business. One of the things that I think that is helpful, because I've been part of a startup business multiple times, that I can still be a part of that process as a volunteer, because I really, really care about these buildings and seeing this project through all the way to the end. So thanks.
Time. Thank you. Ms. Lohmeyer.
So one of the things that I love about Woodstock is that we have such deep historical roots, and I think that the arts and the culture in this town are really important. So I think the use of preserving the old courthouse was a good idea. I think in the future we have to maintain that structure, and I think for the future, what is it going to look like that goes in there? I think it has to be a mix of different kinds of business. It has to have something like the anchor business in the public house. I think it has to have something that's going to use daytime hours, it's going to use nighttime hours. One of, I think, the most interesting ideas that I've heard just out and about is using that as kind of a corporate retreat center, which I think would be really cool. So you come in and you have a meeting there and you get to learn about the history, and then you really dig in and you have a workshop, and that's an awesome daytime use. Or then, in the afternoon or the evening to have more of the weddings or banquets, that sort of thing. I think the courthouse is going to be here, part of our history, and I want it to be part of our history. But I think there are a lot of creative uses that we can consider. And I think that the surrounding part of the courthouse shouldn't be forgotten either. Incorporating that sheriff's house into some sort of lodging would be an awesome idea. And those little, courtyards could be something really interesting, could be even more outdoor dining. Anything that's going to continue to attract people to that landmark, I think, is going to be really important for the future Woodstock.
Mr. Grell?
Well, the courthouse is the absolute focal point of our community, and we absolutely need to be 100% behind preserving it. With that being said, we need to find useful means to make sure that the money that was put into it is bringing a return. I actually like the idea of having a banquet hall, and I like the idea of having a boutique hotel within the courthouse. I got married on the square, and I would have loved to have been able to have that experience of having a group and having guests and family be able to share that celebration with us right there. It's something that there's so much money invested in it. I think we need some private things coming into it to where we can get a return on all the money that's been put in there. So I really would like to see some of those businesses come in of that nature. I do like the idea of also sharing that with an art gallery. I think Woodstock is rich in culture and art, and I think we need to help preserve that and help continue to grow that. So there's a lot of good ideas that have been brought to the table regarding the courthouse, and I'm open to hearing other ones if elected to the City Council, and we'll figure out what the best decision can be together.
Thank you. Ms. Pearsall, you go first on this second question. By ordinance, Woodstock is limited to 25 video gambling licenses, 1 per 1,000 population. The city has only 2 or 3 licenses open at this point, and at least that many businesses that are expressing an interest in having that license. What is your feeling about the value of video gambling in Woodstock and its business environment? Is 25 licenses too many, too few, or about right? And would you favor adding licenses once the 25 max has been reached?
So actually, the city recently reduced the amount of liquor licenses that they had, and it was based on population, and I'm not remembering the exact formula, but we did used to have about 28 or 29 licenses, and we moved it down to 25. So I'm kind of content with where things are at. I'm not a huge fan of video gaming, but I don't really have a problem with it either. It's an important part of the business structure for a lot of the businesses in town. I don't want to take that revenue away from them, and they need to be on an equal opportunity with other businesses in McHenry County and here in Woodstock as well. That answer your question, Larry?
That's close enough. Mr. Grell, you get to go second.
So as far as video gambling goes, I know a lot of people that have made investments in town due to the fact that that actually does bring revenue to their business, and they may not have done that otherwise. And I've been into a lot of the establishments, such as the Red Mill and other establishments around town, and I think they've done a nice job of putting areas off to the side where people can go and enjoy that if they so choose. I don't have an issue with gambling, video gambling. I was initially against it because all I saw around town were signs for video gambling, and it wasn't attractive and it wasn't appealing. And I think the city did a good job to kind of curb that and limit the amount of bad signage that went towards video gambling. The fact that these businesses help, they do get money from that is a positive thing, and it helps bring businesses here. I'm not sure if we should go any further with any more licensing for video gambling, but it's something that we can look at. If there's a real need, if that's the deal maker for a business to want to come in, then that's something that we can consider. But as far as, I don't feel that it's the job of a local government to tell people if they should be able to gamble or not. It's up to them.
Mr. Standard, you're up.
Video gambling is essentially a regressive tax on really, for the most part, people can afford it the least. So my personal feeling about it is that I'm not in favor of gambling at all. However, we have to be realistic. It's here, and it generates money, and for the most part, the properties are discreet about doing it. And actually, I have friends who are in the business. So the state of Illinois has already decided the morality. So my point of view is irrelevant. So what I want to do would be what's in the best interest of the city, and the city council will examine each case individually, and if we stay at 25, we stay at 25, and if there's a consensus that we grow larger, then we grow larger. But it doesn't really create the kind of ambiance for me that I feel about our town.
Mr. Flynn?
Video gaming, first of all, there's worries about addiction when it comes to gambling, and that's something that I think that everybody needs to be able to have resources that they can address, that they can tap into if they have that problem. Video gaming, on the other side, it does generate revenue. It generates revenues for the businesses. It helps them to become more sustainable. It also generates revenue for the city of Woodstock and the state. And that revenue helps to contribute to our tourism and to grant money that actually brings more people in and helps to fund things that are going on in the city of Woodstock to get people here, not for video gaming. So it actually does feed us in some way. And I think that as the city grows, we're at 25,000 and some change today with people. As the city grows, we probably will be asked for more gaming permits. And I think that as long as there are standards in place, that they are discreetly placed, that there's no advertising out front, so it doesn't become like this is the draw piece of Woodstock. I think it's up to one's personal choice whether they decide to video game or frequent establishments that offer video gaming.
Ms. Lohmeyer?
So my stance on video gaming is I appreciate the business owners coming to the city council and voicing their concerns and saying, hey, look, if this is something that we don't have, we're going to lose customers to surrounding towns that we're in an environment that we have to be as competitive as we can already, and then not having this on top of it is even more of a challenge. I really appreciate the ratio that was set in place of how many video gaming licenses you can have to the amount of population in Woodstock. So I think, if we grow, as we grow, if we consider each license as it comes up to the council, I think that's kind of a smart way to go. I think it just provides us a level playing field with other people in the county. I'm not specifically for gambling, but I understand that people want to spend their money on entertainment in certain ways. And I think that they've done a good job, our bars and restaurants have done a good job of kind of keeping that separate from the dining experience so that it's not so in your face. So overall, I think I would still consider if we wanted to look at those licenses on a case-by-case basis as we reach over the limit.
Mr. Flynn, you're up first on this next question. We have a question from the audience about the Founders Crossing proposal. What had been Woodstock Station a decade ago, there's a proposal before the City Council for 91 small lot, single-family homes. The City Planning Commission recently had a lot of questions, some suggestions, and several objections to the plan that was presented. With the understanding that this is only a preliminary plan and a preliminary plat, what are your thoughts on whether Founders Crossing is an acceptable concept for that area?
This is very easy. My thoughts in regards to Founders Crossing for that area is I don't think it's right. I don't think 91 single-family homes with a zero lot line will really address the housing needs that we want for the future of Woodstock. I think that the original city plan that they had put out earlier this year, it calls for higher density homes. It calls with multi-story units with a mix of row house or different types of architecture that will help to blend the brownstones in, will offer more housing options. We have to think about the people that we're targeting to move to Woodstock or move from their existing homes in Woodstock to a maintenance-free environment. A single-family home is not going to bring the comfort and concern, or not concern, but the comfort and lack of worry that a multi-unit will give. It'll also be it'll be a little bit more edgy and a little more forward-thinking when it comes to the population for Woodstock. Right by the train, right by the farmer's market, right by the square. It'll create a thriving and help to foster a thriving retail, shopping and dining atmosphere on the square and create a real hub for the city of Woodstock.
Mr. Standard.
Well, as a designer, I can't imagine a worse design than that. When you're a developer, you want to put, you make money because how many pieces of property you can put on the space. 28-foot lots? Are you kidding me? I live in Victorian Village across from the mayor. If any of you gone to Victorian Village, how wonderful that is, we should be doing something beautiful like that in that space. If we do that, well, we're going to look like Lake in the Hills or some Waveland Avenue west of Wrigley Field. So I think I would vote no without, I just would vote no, period.
Ms. Lohmeyer.
Well, I think maybe this is where we might differ a little bit. I think that we can build something in this area that is beautiful and fits with the theme of Woodstock, kind of blends in with the downtown. I like the high density idea, concept. I'm a millennial. I don't want to take care of my yard right now. I don't want to shovel right now. I want to worry about my job and my career and have a nice place to live, and I want to be close to somewhere where I can shop. I want to be able to hop on a train. I think that this opportunity right there by the train station, by our lovely downtown, I think you could fill a lot of people there who are looking for something like that. You get kind of the best of both worlds. You have a built-in community in these high-density housing units, but then you have the lovely charm of Woodstock too. I think that this is a really, really great opportunity. I don't think it's quite right yet, and I was a little offended that they said, you're not going to have very many opportunities. But I don't think that that's really the right mentality. I think we can still be discerning in what we want to choose for that area, and if it's not right, it's not right. And I think there's a good sense of what we do want to do with this property. That was pretty clear in the downtown plan. I think that was a January meeting. So I'm really looking forward to how we can shape that area to fit what we're all envisioning.
Mr. Grell.
I am not on board with the plan that they proposed as far as that many houses in that area. I don't think it fits with the theme. I think we need to build around what is there and follow a nice little guide as to where that started. I think we need to attract people that are looking to commute, get on the train, and head to their jobs, and then they have a nice little area right there where they can call home. So I think it's overpopulated to have too many homes there at that point, to have too many homes in that area. I think we need to follow the plan that Woodstock's kind of started with that, and I don't think we need to build just for the sake of building. I know we've waited a long time, but I think there will be other opportunities, and I think there will be better opportunities, or the city and the current developer can maybe come to a compromise, but I'm really not on board with the way that is set up.
Ms. Pearsall.
So I actually was at the presentation that this developer gave to the city council when they were first proposing it, and honestly, the homes were quite lovely. Even though they were new construction, they looked like they were built in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and they had really wonderful details on them, and they really fit with the character of our town. So I was really attracted to that. And another point that they made was that the point of the higher density housing is because they are targeting millennials and empty nesters. So these are people, like Lisa just said, that don't want large yards. And part of the downtown development plan overall is to have high density housing close to the square because it attracts more businesses and more people and more foot traffic in general, and it's a better economic development tool. So that plot has been vacant for, I'm thinking 20-something years. I mean, and as offended as I was also by them saying, we're the only people looking at this plot of land, they truly are the only people looking at that plot of land. They are looking at mixing in commercial with residential. They're specifically making sure that the front porches on all the houses are very close to the sidewalks because they found in previous developments that fostered a greater sense of community so that when people were walking the sidewalks that people could actually interact with people on their porches. And I just thought that was a really thoughtful way of building and planning. There are high rises proposed for other areas. And at the same time, I know that the Planning Commission they're tough. We've worked through them. They have some really strong priorities, and I would really like, I know this is going back to the Planning Commission. I'd like to see it get passed through the Planning Commission and then see where we're at, because it's not a final plan yet. Thank you.
This next question, Ms. Lohmeyer, you're up first. Your job as a city council member is to help sell Woodstock to prospective residents and employers. Assume you have an acquaintance who might want to move his family or locate his business in Woodstock, but is leaning toward Crystal Lake. What do you say to her to convince her that Woodstock is better? Your answer may promote Woodstock, denigrate Crystal Lake, or a combination of those.
Well, I like to focus on Woodstock. We'll start there. I don't think it's a secret that I've been involved with the Promote Woodstock initiative and supporting real Woodstock. I think that that program has a really good concept. I think we could tweak it and kind of work with it. But I would tell this friend that I'm in Woodstock and there's lots of great people in Woodstock. No, I'm just kidding. But I think that with any good marketing plan, you need a variety of platforms. Okay, so you need to be in print, you need to be on social media, you need to be on the radio, you need to be proactive, right? So we can't just sit and wait for people to come to us. That would be great if people were just knocking down our doors, but I think things like promoting our events to improve visitorship first, to kind of start connecting those dots is a great way to promote our town. I think that we've done a really good job. Sometimes we live in a bubble in Woodstock and we think, gosh, nothing ever gets done, but I think Woodstock has made progress. I really do. And that's kind of my whole goal of running, is to keep thinking towards the future and keep being proactive and reaching more people to think, hey, you know what, this town, they really do have a great culture, and there's a lot going on, and I kind of get the best of both worlds, being close to some different metropolitan areas, but still having this great sense of community. And then I would just tell that friend, come hang out with me for a day, because I will show you all the great things about Woodstock. So that'd be kind of my plan.
Ms. Pearsall.
So this is a great question for me, because my husband's business started in Crystal Lake, and I'm not going to denigrate Crystal Lake, but they were very difficult to work with for him, and that is the reason that he moved his business to Woodstock, was because Woodstock was much, much easier to work with. And then when he needed to expand his business and he couldn't find a place for it, we worked directly with the economic development team to move Lake Marina RV from Lake Street into the old Harley building. There weren't a lot of options. So one of the challenges when a business moves here to Woodstock is that there's not a lot of real estate for them to look at. You either need to renovate a really old, dilapidated building, or you need to build new construction, for the most part. Those are two really expensive options. So the city of Woodstock has a couple of different economic development incentives to help businesses do that, because here's the other thing, is that overall it's lower, the cost of doing business is lower in Woodstock in the long term. The rents are higher when you get closer to the city, so it is economically more feasible. And the whole selling point of Woodstock is the quality of life here, and the amount, how much we fell in love with this town. It was an easy move. Once he moved his business here, like, we're moving here. This is a great town. I kept telling all my friends about, in the summertime, there's an event every single weekend. There's always stuff to do. It's such a close-knit community. So Woodstock is super easy to sell. So, and in fact, we've done it. He's hired some people from out of town and they've moved here. So I feel like that's something that me, having gone through that process, I can not only vote on that stuff, but I can also consult and give people advice on that stuff as well. Thanks.
Mr. Grell, sell Woodstock.
Sell Woodstock. Well, it's interesting because I spent 20 years as sales account manager, and the goal of selling is to sell value. And there's a lot of value in Woodstock. And I would never, ever actually denigrate Crystal Lake, because I don't believe in bringing someone down to make you look a little bit better. but Woodstock has a lot to offer. I'd invite them to meet with the economic development director, and take a tour of Woodstock and see what Woodstock has to offer, see what their needs are. Let's partner with them. Let's work with them. Let's see how we can work together and be true partners, and Woodstock and for us to be proactive in working with them to make sure that they can flourish and be successful. So it's a partnership that we're offering, and there are incentives, as Wendy said, so we want to really truly be partners with businesses coming here, and I'd like to sell that value that Woodstock has to offer.
Thank you. Mr. Standard.
Would you ask the question again, repeat it?
Question has to do with selling Woodstock. By promoting Woodstock, denigrating Crystal Lake, or both, convince somebody that they ought to move to Woodstock or
Convince
set
someone
their
that
business
they
here.
want to move to Woodstock, I can get that. Everyone in this room knows how wonderful this place is. If you're at the summer band concerts, it's like 1955. This is really an extraordinary town, and we all know that. There's no vehicle. See, forgive me, but I'm a designer, so if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. So this collective vision that we have is not manifested in the world in an artifact. There's nothing that, our economic development people have really nothing that captures how wonderful this community is. So I would create a world-class document that, I'm from Princeton, Illinois, and my brother gave me a brochure that Princeton designed like in 1929 that was so beautiful that you would never throw it away. It was so wonderful. So I think we should have a piece of literature like that, and then I think we should make a film, a movie, not a video, but a film that captures what we all know. But right now, we have no way except our blue eyes and charm or sex appeal. So I think we need some artifacts so we can visualize what we all know.
Mr. Flynn?
It's pretty easy to sell Woodstock because we got sold in a matter of about 20 minutes. We came to Woodstock. We were living in McHenry after moving from the city, and we came to Woodstock because a friend said, let's go to a movie. And we thought we were going to Crystal Lake. And so she said, no, we're going to Woodstock. And it's like we both said, that sounds far. We had no idea where it was. It sounds far. And so we ended up coming to Woodstock. It happened to be the first weekend in January 2016. Big snowflakes falling, buildings lit up, Christmas music playing. Everything was amazing. And the next thing you know, we were like, we got to drive by during the daytime. And I think it was about a month later, we were signing a lease, and 2 months later, we were opening a business. And we knew because of what was here in Woodstock that it would work for us. Now, we're not manufacturers. So I think that the most important thing that if we had a friend that said, I want to move my manufacturing facility to Woodstock, the first thing I would do is I would say, here's the name of a great commercial realtor, and number two, here's how you get in touch with economic development. You need to talk to them. I can also introduce you to people who run manufacturing facilities in Woodstock and why are they here. When it comes to someone moving to Woodstock, as Lisa said, just have them come here and tour them around and take them to your places. And when you walk into a shop and people know who you are, it's a big, it's a city, but it's like a big town. And the fact that people walk by with our store, they walk by every day and they're waving, you're talking, they're showing us your babies and stuff like that. And I think that that's the best part of Woodstock. And no matter how big Woodstock gets, as long as that soul is there, it doesn't matter how big it is, because we keep that. We control that piece of Woodstock. So that's what we have to introduce to people that are coming here.
It's admirable that we have no negative campaigners up here. But as great as Woodstock is, it's not perfect. Put the shoe on the other foot. You're in Crystal Lake, and you want to tell this person, this friend of yours, honestly, about one shortcoming that Woodstock has. Because there aren't many, you only get 30 seconds to answer this. Mr. Standard, you're first.
I have personally, Jolene and I have little motor scooters. We ride around in the summer. Some of you may have seen it. It's silly. I have personally photographed 75 empty industrial buildings in town, 10 or 12 empty storefronts on or near the square. And I've lost my thought here. And a major problem we have is our schools. And now we just have a TIF that's going to skim money off. It'll end up being, when it's done, it'll be a half a century, 50 years of underfunding our schools and other taxing bodies. So that's all I have to say.
Mr. Grail?
Well, unfortunately, I think a lot of businesses have not survived on the square, and it's unfortunate. And I think that if I were to be in Crystal Lake and tell someone not to try their business on the square, it's because many of them failed. And I think they need to do a better job on who they select and partner with as far as what businesses come in. And I want to make sure that we promote the square in a better way. I want to make sure that we promote Woodstock in a better way, and I feel that hasn't been done. And I feel that if I was in Crystal Lake, that's what I would tell them, that they would have a hard time surviving.
Ms. Pearsall?
I'm astonished that nobody has mentioned property taxes so far. You know, they're a big deal here, and they're the #1 complaint that I hear from just about everyone. And when we first moved here, our property taxes tripled between 5 years ago and now, and part of that was underassessment. And that's why I think economic development and bringing more business and residents is so strong. We need a bigger, stronger tax base, just period.
Mr. Flynn?
I'm amazed that nobody said potholes, but we'll get back to that later. Honestly, I think one shortcoming, and I think Mr. Grell touched on it, is in regards to the square. I think that Woodstock is lacking a very strong and cohesive downtown business organization. I think that there should be more shoppable hours on the square to make it more appealing. Not everyone is home and ready to go tackle things during the week at 6 o'clock from work. I think that we need to have the ability for people to come and to shop and to be welcomed on the square at that time and have an assortment to choose from. Trying to think, I think the only thing that would really rectify that would be having a strong downtown business alliance and a more cohesive plan in regards to attracting new retailers and new businesses.
Time. Thank you. Mr. Grail, you're first.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Lohmeyer. Yes, I'm sorry. Number 5, I've got you right there. My fault.
Okay. I think that one of our shortcomings is our first impression. You know, we get to the middle of the town and you have this beautiful square and everything seems to just kind of jive in aesthetics. I think we need to really work on expanding that radius because let's face it, everyone's coming from 1447, Charles. We need those entry points to be equally as appealing as once you get into the downtown. So, I mean, maybe people aren't even making it to the beautiful square before they realize this overwhelming, beautiful town. So I think that kind of goes along with what Darren said of the potholes. Maybe we could work in a little bit more money into working on our infrastructure because let's face it, first impressions are important.
Thank you all for your honesty. Mr. Grail first on this question. Legalization of cannabis for recreation or medicinal purposes has some clear economic advantages for a community. What is your feeling about its medical and recreational legalization? Would you support siting of dispensaries or growing operations in Woodstock? And what challenges, if any, do you see for law enforcement?
Well, as far as medical use, I am an advocate. I am a cancer survivor, and I have seen the benefits of cannabis when you are fighting that horrible disease. On a recreational view, I don't see it a big deal if you're an adult, and I don't see it being an issue as far as law enforcement. I don't see anything going any further than it is right now as far as people going out and getting crazy because they're smoking marijuana. I am more towards the medicinal side, as I said, because of the fact that I've seen how well it can help treat and cope with fighting that disease, cancer. And I would be okay with having a dispensary for that use. As far as growing, is that what you said, excuse me?
A grow operation, yeah.
A grow operation, well, it's got to come from somewhere, so why don't we farm it, and why don't we have it here, and why don't we create that revenue for Woodstock? So I would be fine for medicinal marijuana dispensary here.
Mr. Flynn?
In regards to the legalization of cannabis, I am for it. For medical purposes, I think it's invaluable. I think it helps when other things fail, and I think that it's a more natural method. In regards to growing and dispensaries, I agree very much. I mean, why shouldn't it be grown here? It's going to be grown somewhere, and so why shouldn't it be grown here in a controlled environment that we could actually capture some of that revenue? Dispensaries, I agree. I think that many states have found that selling recreational marijuana is quite lucrative. I don't think that they've seen great increases in crime or anything. I would just like to caution that if you want to get a haircut at DNA, your haircuts are now 2 hours instead of 60 minutes. That would be my concern, would be the legalization of recreational use and the workplace in regards to safety, because it does impair judgment like many other substances. So that would be my biggest concern, but I would be okay with, very controlled, monitored, growing dispensary and taxed.
Ms. Lohmeyer?
I'm surprised by this, but I am in support of it. I think it's not as shocking to me as maybe it is to other people. I think, there's a lot of proven benefits of using cannabis medicinally. We could benefit tremendously by growing it and having a dispensary. I think that it could only bring more opportunities to make a little bit more money. I think that it's kind of the way of our world right now. I think maybe 10 years ago is a little more controversial than it is now. So overall, yeah, I'm in support of it.
Mr. Standard?
I don't think I've ever heard of any guy smoking a joint and going home and beating his wife up. So I'm kind of a libertarian in that respect. I think, people should be able to do what they want with their body. But all this is a moot point anyway, because the governor is going to illegalize it. So that's what's going to happen. The state needs the money. It won't be a drip in the bucket, but they're going to do it. And I think people have the right to do what they want with their bodies. That's kind of a Rand Paul or libertarian point of view, I suppose. I don't know anything about the possibility of farming weed in Woodstock. The tobacco companies have already controlled all that. This is big, big business, and there's not going to be any little pot shops around Woodstock. This is a huge, huge, huge industry, and it's unavoidable. So I have no problem with it.
Ms. Pearsall?
So I'm super glad that my 16-year-old daughter just left the room so she doesn't have to hear this conversation.
Facebook Live.
Because honestly, I probably have the most conservative view up here because I really don't want easy access for our kids to anything that is going to impair their judgment. And this is a state level issue. This is not a local level issue. The state is gonna tell us basically where we can have this stuff. The state is gonna tell us how people can grow it. The state is gonna tell us how many dispensaries we can have in a certain radius. So as much as I want to be more conservative about it, this is not something, like Michael just said, this is a train that can't be stopped. So I would be very much in favor of making sure that we have strong oversight of it. We already have a problem at our schools with kids dabbing, and the vaping, and this is something that I actually am very concerned about with the law enforcement, which means I think it's going to be a bigger burden on the city, honestly, and we're going to have to grapple with that when we get there. And ultimately, because it's coming and it's here, I'm going to have to support it and find a way to do that and protect our kids while at the same time giving the adults the access that they're going to legally have.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn, first on this question. From the audience regarding growth, understanding that it wasn't that long ago, we remember when there was a significant no growth caucus within the city council and city leaders. Woodstock is a vibrant community, yet doesn't like the word change. Without using that word, what will you do to keep us moving toward realizing our potential?
Okay, without using that word. All right. I was told earlier that that is a dirty word in Woodstock, so you're not allowed to say that word. So in my feeling, in order to keep moving forward, there has to be forward thinking. And in order to make progress, you have to work toward it. It just doesn't happen. So in my opinion, growth and forward thinking and being innovative and looking at new ways to solve old problems will lead to the growth that we need. Stabilizing and making our infrastructure fiscally responsible and serving the community, making our real estate taxes, not that we're gonna say, oh, we're gonna lower taxes, but say, make it so you feel like you're getting the bang for your buck when it comes to your real estate taxes because of a strong infrastructure, because of a growing economic development with more businesses and more residential.
Mr. Grell.
Well, as I stated earlier, I am for growing and bringing economic development to Woodstock. Because it was fought for so long, this is where we're at right now. We're kind of behind in some of our neighboring communities. As Lisa stated earlier, first impressions mean a lot. And when you pull into Woodstock, you can see that development and growth has been not a very popular thing for a long time. And I want to move forward. I think forward thinking is essential in order to bring Woodstock to where it needs to be. We need that revenue, quite frankly. We need that infrastructure to help with that infrastructure. We need that base. We need that revenue. I am all for bringing that revenue and that growth to Woodstock, and I want to be a champion for that cause.
Ms. Lohmeyer.
I'm very excited about growth for Woodstock. I don't think that's an unknown, but I'm looking forward to being competitive and proactive when I get in there. So I think we have to really encourage our staff and the current council to be reaching out to new developers, to new potential employers. I don't think we can, like I said earlier, I don't think we can just sit back and wait for those things to happen. I think controlled growth is key here. We still have to be thoughtful and mindful about how we're growing and what we're bringing into Woodstock. But encouraging that updating of things that we do have while we're trying to attract new people into our community and trying to create new opportunities for employers. It's a huge web, right? It all works together. So I think if we all have the mindset that we want to get out there and continue to make Woodstock the best that it can be without sounding too cheesy, I think that's going to be really key to our growth for the community.
Ms. Pearsall.
So the weather has been a little challenging lately, but I have been able to get out and knock on some doors. And I'm doing that specifically to talk to people that are totally outside of my circle. And there's been a really fascinating conversations and common threads between the people who have lived here for a really long time and their perspective and the people who have lived here in the last 5-7 years or so. The newer residents are really just love the town, almost Pollyannish. They're still in that honeymoon phase. And the old residents have a ton of really valid concerns about change. I'm sorry. I get it. I really get it. And I really don't think that we have to change a lot in order to grow. I'm sorry, I used the word twice. There's a lot of historic preservation that we can do. We have our square. That in and of itself is not going to change. And darn it, that's the third one, isn't it? I'm just going to give up now. Mr. Stannard?
Mr. Stannard.
Well, I'm not so sure about this growth thing. One thing I am crystal clear about with regard to growth is that we need to get a major manufacturing company or two into this town. We need the tax base. and we won't be able to do anything if we don't have the money. And if we have several large companies come in here, and we have to go after it aggressively, I have more to say about that later, we can't continue the Venus flytrap approach to attracting business. We have to earmark, go after people, and we have to get large manufacturing companies in here that pay living wages and employ a lot of people. And everything else will take care of itself. The square will be stronger, people will move here, houses will get built, but we need a strong industrial company to come in. That's what I think about growth. Also, let me say one last thing. Growth is a conventional wisdom, which I find is often wrong. I like the idea more of polishing and refining and making better what we already have, and grooming our parks beautifully, and have Lake Street, when you come in by the police station, with daffodils coming up in the spring, like in Bow Valley, instead of a bunch of nasty weed trees, and to concentrate on making our community beautiful, and then attract major employers. I think that's of paramount importance. Thanks.
We covered everybody? Ms. Lohmeyer, you're first on this one. We have two questions from the audience regarding the historic character of the city. How important do you feel it is to preserve the historic character of the city of Woodstock? And how would you balance historic preservation and maintaining the character of Woodstock with economic development and expansion?
Okay. Well, I think historic preservation has been a focus of our town forever. I think people really value our landmarks that we already have here, the old courthouse, the opera house. I think these are part of what makes us us. And we have such a strong community that values these things that I think if we were to say, no, we don't value them anymore, that would be actually really hurtful to our future. The balance is key. I think when we're thinking about the economic development with new properties that are coming in, I think they have to look and feel similar. They have to fit that vibe. I think that people my age are still looking for that. They're still looking for that home, that strong sense of culture. You know, I think that if you look at downtown Chicago, it's funny how like the neighborhoods that were maybe struggling or a little bit depressed, everyone seems to say, oh, they're up and coming, and then they're cool, you know? So I think that we have a really big opportunity to kind of promote that about Woodstock. If there's a little part that's depressed, but it has a cool historical background, I think that's a really big value for us, actually. Someone with that entrepreneur mind can come in and hopefully fix that up and make that area thrive. So I think it's going to be a balance of keeping our values, but also thinking, you know, differently and creatively about how we can use those spaces to promote.
Ms. Pearsall.
So we actually have a historic preservation commission that oversees a lot of the stuff that people want to do in our town. And there's also existing guidelines. So I believe that it's going to be easy to continue our historic preservation tradition, and it's a high priority for the city and for the people of Woodstock, and I'm not really concerned about losing that. I don't think any of us want to lose that. Honestly, the problem that I see is if we go, and oh, by the way, we also have historic districts, so it's bounded. So as we're looking at growth, when we're starting to go beyond that historic area, my concern is how do we make sure we avoid sprawl? You know, at some point in the next 10 or 20 years, we're not going to have those fields probably between us and Crystal Lake anymore. We're going to get sucked in. Like when I was a kid, we used to go to West Chicago to go to the country. I mean, it's all urban now, and I don't want to see that happen in Woodstock either. So it is going to be a really strong balance, and I really hope that the Planning Commission sure that as we grow, that we maintain some density, and that as new subdivisions come in, that they continue to be true to the charm and character of the homes and businesses that are already here in Woodstock.
Mr. Standard?
Well, it occurs to me that historical preservation is in Woodstock's DNA, and that the community's been committed to that for years. We have an opera house that's extremely unusual and special, Stage Left Cafe. We have what I call the courthouse complex, the courthouse, the sheriff's residence, the jail. And I have an idea for that that I won't repeat, and I also think it's very important what we put on the die-cast site, because it has to be really stunning and beautiful. But I have no concerns about us betraying our historical buildings. I think we appreciate them, and I'm confident that they'll be there for 100 years.
Mr. Grell?
As I was hearing this question, the first word that came to my mind was balance, and then I heard it twice before I was able to say it, so it kind of stole some of my thunder. But I think it is paramount that we hold true to what our identity is, and that is the beautiful history that Woodstock has. And as a matter of fact, when I talk about growth, I would like to see some of the beautiful homes that have kind of lost their luster make a comeback. I've seen a few of those happen already, and I think it's done amazing things for this town, helped to beautify the downtown area, and I would absolutely like to see more of that. But when I think about growth, I think, why can't we have both? We should have both. If we're going to be forward thinking, we need to be forward thinking, but we cannot forget why we came to Woodstock, why we chose to live in Woodstock, and a lot of that reason is because of the historical charm and beauty that is Woodstock, and I would never ever want to compromise or lose that while working on growth.
Mr. Flynn?
As others have said, we have the charm and we have the preservation of the square. And I think that what we need to really focus on as we grow with planned growth is kind of working on zones. We have our industrial areas. We have wonderful industrial parks that have opportunities to build. I personally, it scares me. I have a family from Michigan, and it scares me when you say a huge manufacturer, because I saw what the auto industry did to some of the towns in Michigan, and relying heavily on one or two employers is frightening. And for a town like this, if you imagine a factory coming in, opening up, making a huge boom, and then all of a sudden 5 years later you have 1,500 people that are unemployed, that are new to your community. I would like to see us look for and actively seek new ways for manufacturing. Maybe manufacturing doesn't have to do with actually making of parts. Maybe it's an intellectual manufacturing. Maybe we're looking at new ways for our office parks, like why we wouldn't have the call centers that are serving every cloud-based app that's out there now. Looking for things that we can be buffers and we can have zones. If we look at Route 47, we can develop that and work toward making that our pass-through. That's where people are stopping for convenience and passing through. We all stop. We go to the Walmart, but you never hear anybody say, "Oh my gosh, honey, let's go to Woodstock. They have the most amazing Walmart." They say, "Let's go to Woodstock. The square is beautiful." So that's where we preserve and protect the square and keep it beautiful. Keep the park, keep the music in the park, keep the weddings. It's fantastic when you look out and you say, "Oh my gosh, somebody's getting married in the bandstand." It's absolutely amazing, and I think that we can definitely balance that. We have to be very forward thinking and think, okay, this, yes, is going to carry on to this, and this, and what path are we going to take with this? And that goes with any of our zones, and looking for the secure, fiscally responsible infrastructure and the transitions between these zones to make it very cohesive.
Thank you. Ms. Pearsall, you're up first on the next question. According to census figures, at least 30% of Woodstock's population is non-Caucasian. And what we know about population counts, that 30% is probably low, maybe significantly so. Yet, when you look at Woodstock, you do not see that 30% represented. Not in the business community, not on government boards, councils, and commissions, and certainly not in the audience here tonight. Why do you believe For example, the Hispanic community is not proportionately represented. What value do you see, if any, in increasing that representation? And what do you believe can be done to change that?
Wow, this is near and dear to my heart. So first of all, I want to point out my dear friend Carlos Acosta, who is your county board representative, and I worked really hard to get him elected last fall. I really value diversity, and honestly, I think our current city council, we're losing Maureen. She's the only person up there that's not a white male. I think it's really important to have that diversity up there, which is one of the reasons that I'm running. And honestly, I don't know that the Hispanic population or other populations are not all that visible. They're visible if you participate. And Darren actually has done a lot of work on this, and I'm going to give him kudos for that. But also Juanita Vega, she's been working really hard for the last year or so, maybe 2 years, with her Hispanic connections to bridge that gap between the regular population of Woodstock and the Hispanic population of Woodstock, because she felt that they were too siloed. And I was really, really proud of just seeing that happen. And there's Alondra Flores. She was our first Hispanic Miss Woodstock. Another round of applause for her. We're a diverse community. I would like to see it more diverse at the city level, absolutely. And I don't buy it for 1 second that it's not visible in our city. It's there if you see it.
Mr. Standard?
Well, I agree with, and I congratulated Carlos out in the lobby being elected to the county board. You know, I think some of the visibility is lacking because Frank, and this is going to probably get me in trouble, but the guy that plows my drive at our studio, and I'm talking to him, and he doesn't get involved because he's not legal. And that's a problem. So that's something the country has to deal with, because there's at least 30%, 25% Hispanic in Woodstock, and they're not players. They're not visible, I agree. And Mr. Carlos Acosta broke through, and that's a first. So, you know, who's not in favor of including everyone? And the longer we're together, the more we'll, what's the word I want to say? The more we'll become the melting pot that is America. And, you know, if the men, the guys that are doing the hard work in town, the hard work are the Hispanic guys.
Mr. Flynn?
This is something that I can relate to very closely. My husband, Alberto Perez, is Mexican, born in the suburbs of Chicago. When we moved to the burbs, his biggest fear was, oh my God, I'm going to be the only one there. And the thing that was very interesting is, you know, we had some jokes that were kitchen table jokes, and we'll leave those alone. But I have to say that you know, since moving to Woodstock and becoming involved with the Chamber of Commerce, I have to applaud the Chamber of Commerce and Juanita Vega, as Wendy mentioned, and spearheading the Hispanic Connections Group. The Hispanic Connections Group is a group that there's a subgroup, in a sense, of the Chamber of Commerce that is all Hispanic business owners and business people that are in business in Woodstock and the surrounding area. It is so exciting because actually they are doing so great. They've started the Mexican Independence Day that they've had 2 years in a row at Flores Banquets, a business that is on the square. They also own Success Realty. The major representative of Berry Global that represents us and is an ambassador tonight, Olga Ortiz, is an amazing representative of the community and is providing an example to the Hispanic community that, you know what, it's okay. You don't have to be over here. It's like, it's part of the group. You can be part of the whole community. I'm very excited about the fact that Mexican Independence Day will actually be moving to the square this year, which is amazing because it becomes a town square. Everyone can participate and learn about other cultures and learn about each other. I think we do stay in silos, and I think that that's really unfortunate because we're missing out on some great opportunities to learn about other people that in some cases are much more interesting than we are.
Mr. Grell?
You know, I can remember when I was in first grade, and I can remember meeting the first kid that came to class who was Hispanic, and we became friends immediately. It didn't matter to me that he was Hispanic. He was a nice guy. And that's what matters. Diversity in our community it should be welcomed, and I certainly welcome it. My children were both in the dual language program at the school, and they had a lot of Hispanic friends. They're great kids. Hate is taught. When you see someone and you want to be friends with them, you be friends with them because of the person they are. And as far as the comment about not seeing Hispanics in the business community, I do see them in the business community, and I welcome more of them coming into having businesses and owning businesses in town. And I welcome more diversity as we continue to grow. I can remember when Woodstock was single-digit percentage as far as Hispanic population, and I think that's okay to grow that as long as you are being productive member of society. People are people, skin color and background shouldn't matter.
Ms. Lohmeyer.
I think this is a case of your perception is your reality, because I see Woodstock doing great things to encourage diversity. For one thing, I think that the Hispanic Connections group has been phenomenal. We're celebrating a Pride weekend coming up in this summer. There's women's marches that were held here. There's a dual language program. I think we're really doing a good job of trying to create opportunities and being inclusive to all those different demographics. I will say this was one of my main reasons for running for city council, is I did see that all those demographics aren't represented. I think I'm maybe one of the youngest people to ever run. And there's only ever been a few females. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity, and I think we're making really good first steps. And I think that, as we get out there and tell people it's okay to be yourself, and it's okay to get involved with these things, I think we're a really welcoming community, and I think it's only going to build and help our community overall.
Thank you. Our last question before we get to the closing statements. Mr. Standard, you will go first. If the square represents Woodstock's downtown, Route 47 surely is our uptown. And for only $120 million, the state can complete the widening improvement of that highway through the city. The city is prepared to pay its $11 million share to complete the project, but we're still 6 to 8 years away, the state tells us. What is your vision, your dream for what Route 47 can be for commercial, industrial, and residential development? And what can the city do to mitigate the significant disruption to businesses along that road during the likely 2 years of construction?
I'll take the last part of your question first. I have no idea what they can do to mitigate the business problems when that's under construction. I don't have a clue about how to do that. I don't agree that Route 47 is Woodstock. If we get another White Castle in there or another gas station, I like the local retailers like Arlene Lyons, where the money stays in town, but the money from Starbucks, including Starbucks, but Sherwin-Williams, the gas stations, McDonald's, Panera, all that money of ours goes out of town. And they pay taxes, but they pay taxes with the money we spent there. So I think Woodstock is going to be like Randall Road, and I don't think it's Woodstock. I think Route 47 is going to be Randall Road. I don't think we have much control over it. I'd like to see, there's a big welding company there that I'm sure they're doing good. And if that disappeared and that became a city park, that would be fine with me. Let's buy that. But I just don't think Route 47 is Woodstock. I think the square and the community and the homes and the schools and the sporting teams and the community, I think that's Woodstock. And I think it's inevitable that Route 47 is going to be Randall Road or someplace in Lombard. And I just don't think it's Woodstock.
Ms. Lohmeyer.
So, okay, to say that it's a long ways off, I don't know if I think that's fair. It's been a long process, and I think that our current city council, including our mayor and our city staff, have done a really good job of getting down to Springfield and working with our, can't think of the right word right now, our liaison. And I think that we're making progress, and 5 to 7 years in the grand scheme of things, I don't think is that big. I think that this is something that we need for Woodstock in order for it to work better, and I think in order for it to look better, we can do things to make it feel like part of Woodstock. I think some of those aesthetics that I've already talked about are things that we can work into the plan when we're trying to redevelop 47. One of my big goals for kind of part of that project too is making it more pedestrian friendly, so it doesn't feel like, hey, there's this big strip and then there's the downtown. I think trying to work to make that cohesive appeal and look into the entire town is really, really important. In terms of disruption, I think that's something that we're going to have to work out together, maybe working in kind of sections, making sure that there's good passes. That's going to be kind of a work in progress, but I feel very hopeful. I think we're getting close. So,
Ms. Pearsall.
I was actually waiting for something about Route 47 to come up, because Route 47, okay, let me break down some numbers for you. The sales tax revenue for the city of Woodstock is the second highest to property taxes. We rely on that revenue in order to actually fund the government here. And Route 47 is more than triple the amount of sales tax revenue than the square is. So to say that Route 47 is not Woodstock, I mean, there's Route 47 business owners in here. They're invested in our community. They're the ones who are sponsoring our Little Leagues. Those Route 47 businesses are the ones that are funding a big part of our government. So I take a little offense at that. We absolutely have to prepare our Route 47 businesses, because they're going to have a big disruption coming up. And I've actually purposely sat down and talked with them to get some ideas from them, like, how can we make sure that you stay in business during this time, because you're important to us. Some of the ideas that they've given me are really good. Like, we need to find ways to maybe put some temporary gravel pathways through the parking lots so that there's accessibility to these businesses. I don't know when Route 47 is going to happen. We've got, a big cluster down in Springfield, and whenever the funding happens to get this capital bill passed is when Route 47 happens. I am happy to go down to Springfield. I know our representative, Steve Reich. He's in the Rotary Club with me. We've actually had conversations about, dude, you gotta support the funding for this. This is critical to our success. I'm sorry to get passionate about this, but this is not a small issue. This is a huge issue for us, and it honestly disappoints me a little bit that this was the last question and a footnote to this forum, because it's way bigger than that. And wow, I could talk a lot more about that, and would love to talk with you more later if you're inclined to.
Mr. Flynn.
I have to echo Wendy's sentiment in the fact that Route 47 and the businesses on Route 47 contribute the lion's share when it comes to sales tax, and we need them. And we need to make sure that they're viable during construction. And I think the most important thing is to have the plannings, provide and allow for alternate access for construction. We've all driven through Randall Road, all of these things while they're under construction. And the thing that's funny is if you want to go to Target, you find a way to get in the Target parking lot. So we have to make sure that the businesses communicate effectively and say, we are here. And if that means that we need to do increased signage, if we have to do something to raise the flag and say, listen, we're still right here, I think that's very important. I too feel that we're not running for specific districts, so we are at large. So that means that if elected, I represent all of Woodstock. So that is everything within the city limits of Woodstock. So I don't care if you are a business owner or a resident, I am your representative. And I take that very seriously, and I will do my absolute best for you. And we need more diverse choices. We need to add to our tax base. We need to increase our city's revenue from sales tax. We need shopping diversity. You know, not everything fits on the square. We need shopping diversity that we can put on a Route 47 that can be a pass-through or a quick run to. We need, in my opinion, we need better choices in grocery stores. We have Walmart, we have Jewel, we have Aldi. You know, there are plenty of other kinds of grocery stores out there that are catering to today's consumer and the future consumer. I think we need dining choices. In talking to restaurant owning friends in the community, they say bring them on, bring more, because the competition makes the dining better and it makes them more competitive. And also I feel that lodging, we need lodging. The Cherry Tree Inn can only take so much. You know, I mean, when it comes down to it, and you know, and the Best Western was our temporary home while we were waiting for it to be renovated. So we're very grateful, but it would be nice to have more choices so more people have a place to stay, so we can get more heads and beds, and we can also generate some more revenue with our hotel tax for tourism. It would be my commitment to make sure, as a business owner, as someone who works in corporate America as well, is to make sure that these businesses are looked out for and that they are protected and alternatives are offered for them, and be able to be an ear to hear their concerns and hear their causes and fight for their causes.
Thank you, Mr. Grell.
I would like to respond to,
On your closing.
All right.
Mr. Grell?
Okay, so let's face it, 47 needs to be widened, expanded, and redone. It is a main artery in this town, and it has been the same way for the last 25, 30 plus years, maybe even 40. It is essential that we get that done. Driving down 47 is miserable. We all know that. We need that main artery widened. And as far as making sure that businesses are protected when that's done, I'm sure that will be in the plans, and we'll communicate with businesses to make sure, as they said, that we're still here and we are still in business. We want those businesses to survive. But to keep 47 the way it is right now, it can't continue. It has to grow, and that is part of the growth, and that is part of the economic development that I'm looking to bring to Woodstock. We want, and furthermore, Woodstock is absolutely part, or switch that around. Route 47 is absolutely part of Woodstock. It is a main part of Woodstock. I heard Sherwin-Williams mentioned. I happen to work for Sherwin-Williams. I'm a representative. I think they did a nice job in adding a nice business and that looks aesthetically pleasing to our community. And I will welcome more of that, because we need choices. From speaking to people in the community, they want dining choices. They want shopping choices that were mentioned. And that's what I want to help bring to Woodstock. So, and I also know that the city council and the mayor have been down to Springfield recently, and it could happen sooner. It may not, but we need to keep pushing forward to make sure that that progress on 47 happens. And I will absolutely go down to Springfield as well to help be an advocate to get that done.
Thank you. To determine the order of the closing statements, I'm passing this down. Please take a slip. It's not democratic, but it's somewhat random. Thank you for your questions tonight. I will take all the questions that didn't get asked tonight and put them in an email that I will send to all of the candidates so that they know what your concerns are. Who's got number one?
I do.
You're first.
I'd like to have 30 seconds before this minute starts.
2 minutes.
I
You
want
got
to
2
clarify what I
minutes.
said about retail. Of course we're for retail. For our lean lines, for our local people, of course we're for that. But I want to remind you, the taxes they pay are with money we spend there. It's a money cycle. It's our money. And the big guys, the Paneras and the gas stations and McDonald's, they pay taxes with the money we pay, and then they take their profits to Oak Brook or out of town. So I just want to make that clear. So I'm totally for retail, but I just want to be clear, who's paying the taxes? All right, so as a practical matter, here's what I have to say to close. The city's got it pretty much together. Brian's got it pretty much together. Day to day, the professional staff does great. Jeff, Roscoe, and others. But as a city council member, I'll focus on the overarching issues that will face the leadership of our city as our government is sure to change dramatically in the next 4 years. So my focus will include 3 things. First, we must come to grips with the condition of our roads. We must get our roads squared away. Raising taxes is not an option. I will support devoting every dollar generated from video gaming to the repair and repaving of every street in town. Further, we have many bonds that are about to be paid down. And I would combine that money, like for the library and for the Stage Left Cafe and the water park, we're paying those off. And there's a lot of money there that can be combined with the gaming funds. And for $3 or $4 million a year, might take 8 years, 10 years, our roads could be fixed, because our roads are a big mess. I know I've driven on every single one of them, more than anyone in this room and more than anyone in the city council, on my stupid little Honda Ruckus scooter. So it's imperative that we conduct a relentless search for a large manufacturer, not outside of town. Without that tax base, we're not going to be able to do much of anything. These people employ a lot of people, they pay high salaries, and we need that tax base. So I will encourage an aggressive, focused search to land large companies.
That's 2.5 minutes.
One more thing.
Very quickly.
Okay, I want to create the Woodstock and Performing Arts Academy in the old complex. I have a plan that'll work, it'll fund itself, and I have a big presentation if anyone's interested.
Thank you. Thank you. Who's got number 2?
I do.
Lisa Lohmeyer.
Yes.
Go.
So first of all, I'd like to start by thanking Mark Saladin and Maureen Larson and Dan Hart for their service and their collective years of experience. That's it. I look forward to bringing a new perspective and some creative thought processes to the City Council. I think my number 1 goal, if I am elected, is to be more proactive and to grow. And that bad word, change, I think is inevitable, and I think it's really a good thing. I want to continue to be mindful and thoughtful about our growth and especially our spending, and maybe some different areas we could spend more and spend a little bit less. Finally, we have the raw materials, we have the talent in Woodstock, we have the infrastructure. It's tweaking and it's updating and it's attracting new ideas and promoting. It really is. So I hope you'll get out on April 2nd or maybe even as soon as next week and vote for me. And if you have any questions in the meantime, you can go to my website, which is lisawithwoodstock.com, and I'd be happy to get back to you and hear your point of view and go from there.
Thank you. Who's number 3?
I am.
All right, you go.
I would also like to thank again the Chamber and the Independent and all of you for sitting through this and asking really thoughtful questions. I actually didn't think this would be so deep in policy, and I'm glad that it was, because it really, I think, showcased a lot of the knowledge that we have up here. But I don't think you really got to know who we are as people, and I want to tell you a little bit about that. So when in 2016, I had a couple of challenges in my life in which you could call it a midlife crisis, but I'd realized I'd been telling myself I was going to get involved for too many years, and I hadn't done it. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make a difference. So I started getting involved. I became a member of the Rotary Club, and I did a ton of work on Christmas Clearinghouse. I got involved with the Old Courthouse Commission. Whew. And also am a member of the Promote Woodstock Advisory Council. Those 3 entities, I think, really kind of sum up who I am as a person and how I want to serve this community. Because Christmas Clearinghouse is all about serving the less fortunate that we have in our town. The Courthouse Commission is all about preserving our heritage. And Promoting Woodstock is all about moving towards the future and growing. I've always been a small business champion, but I've never forgotten my roots. You know, we've had some really rough times as a family. lost our life savings in the Great Recession, and I know I'm not the only one in the room that can say that. But it's really heightened my ability to empathize with people from at all different levels of life, and that's just really important to me. Darren made a really good comment. We are at large. We are running for at-large council seats here, which means we're not just representing the people in here. We're not just representing the businesses in town. We're representing the renters. We're representing the people that aren't going to vote for us because they're working from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's the kind of person I am.
Thank you. Number 4.
That would be me. So we talked about bringing economic growth and development to Woodstock. Those things need to happen in order for us to, as we said, fix the terrible roads we have in town. But I don't want to rely on just manufacturing. It scares me as well to have too many eggs in one basket. And I don't think that it's a bad thing to be well-rounded with different businesses in town. That keeps things flowing, that keeps things moving, that brings people in. People that live here will work in those small shops too, not only in manufacturing. So there's been a lot of great topics brought up tonight, and I'm really excited about taking those challenges on if elected. And I really was impressed with a lot of the answers by some of the candidates tonight. But I want to make sure that Woodstock continues to move forward without losing the identity that we all love about it. I live my life trying to leave everything better than I found it, and that's how I want to treat this and treat Woodstock. I want to make it better. I want it to grow. I want to leave it better than I found it. So I'm asking you to help me do that, and I'm looking for your support on April 2nd. I thank everyone for coming out tonight. I thank you, Larry, for being the moderator, and I thank all the sponsors who helped put this together. And again, I hope to earn your vote come April. Thank you very much.
Mr. Flynn, you get the last word tonight.
The last word. I've been waiting 51 years for this. First off, I'll just thank everyone for all of their help and participation, because I'll probably get cut off. So anyway, many of you know, and some of you don't know, I also have a day job. And in my day job, I work for a global company in the personal care industry, and I personally manage a territory in excess of $31 million a year. I'm accountable for the profit, the loss, the net operating profit, and everything. I approach, and I was actually hired and put in my position to be a disruptor. And by a disruptor, it doesn't mean a troublemaker, but it means someone who looks at what's happening, what's going on, looking at the results, and anytime you hear someone say, that's how we've always done it, that raises a red flag, and you immediately study, and you say, is it working? Great. Is it not working? How can we fix it? And I feel that in this situation, Woodstock's a great community. It's a fantastic city. We live here. We love it. But I offer new eyes for old problems. We haven't lived here all our lives, and I applaud the people that had that luxury to have a hometown all their lives. We moved 17 times before I was out of high school. So it's like, I'm jealous. When new eyes for old problems, and some of the old problems that we're looking at are infrastructure, residential development, and economic growth. It's kind of stagnant in some degrees. And what I will offer is I will offer forward thinking, fiscal responsibility, growth focused, and most importantly, in my eyes, an openness to learn and an openness to listen. I am the first person to stop. I get yelled at all the time because it took me 45 minutes to get from the double yoke to the salon. Because I'm talking to people because I want to know what's going on and what do you think and what's going on. I will commit to you that if elected to City Council, that I will be a hands-on councilman. I will be in the community. As I am now, I will continue my involvement in the Chamber of Commerce because I think that is vital for economic development. I will actively work toward a better future for Woodstock, a fiscally responsible future for Woodstock. Thank you.
That was just about 2 minutes. Yeah, wasn't too bad. Good
I did what I could. I'm used to rushing.
Thank you all for being here and participating tonight. And you want this? And let's give them all a hand, please.
Thank you all again for coming. Let's give Larry a hand. He did a great job tonight. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Associated Electrical Contractors, the Woodstock Independent, Mike Potterbeck with Escape Technologies. Hopefully the video has been streaming this whole time online. If not, we will post it and you'll get to watch it later. I also want to just take a quick opportunity to promote an event that's coming up at Woodstock High School on April 6th. It's the Health and Wellness Expo and Home and Office Expo. It's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you have an opportunity and you're in town that day, come on over to Woodstock High School and meet some of our local businesses. There'll be some businesses from out of town too, but you can come and talk with our local businesses and hear what they have to say. And they're looking forward to meeting you and expanding their network as well. So thank you again so much for coming. We appreciate it, and get out there and vote on April 2nd.
Careful going home.